Hello and welcome to an episode of Gaming with The Sims. I'm your channel host, Charles Sims. So tonight we will be looking at a board game called Terraforming Mars. We'll be going through how to play it briefly and looking at both expansions. I just want to remind you, in the July series of episodes on a Friday night, we are giving away a competition to give away Exploding Kittens. We will give away 2 copies of Exploding Kittens if we do manage to reach 1,000 subscribers by the 5th of August when the draw is happening. Stay tuned for later in the episode where we will be talking about how you can have a chance to win Exploding Kittens. Tonight we're going to have a brief look at what's going to be happening next week before we get into the board game tonight. On Tuesday next week we will be looking at the new rules pack or the rule book for X-Wing 2.0 that came up yesterday, the 11th of July, online for the online version of that, so we can have a chance to read it and review some of the new rules for it. And then next Friday, hopefully, we'll have me and another host to give you a brief run through of Exploding Kittens. So not only telling you how to play the game, but also showing you a bit about it. So it'll hopefully be better for you to see it in action. So today we're going to be looking at a stronghold game, Terraforming Mars. This is a good game. I have played all the variants of it now, and it is one of my favourites. Probably doesn't make the top 5, but definitely makes my top 10 games. So stay tuned for later in the year when you'll get a full breakdown of the situation. So first of all, we're going to be looking at the main core box. So the board looks like this. So just so to give you all aware, this is the actual area of Mars we're going to be looking at. It takes about 1/3 of Mars. I'll say why that's important later on. And then we've got some areas off Mars which does come into it. So you've got a score tracker around the outside of the board, and there's 3 global important bits which are the goals of the game basically. You've got to raise the temperature. It starts here and you want to raise it all the way up. You've got your oxygen tracker here which you've got to raise up, and when it's flat you put 9 ocean tiles here, and obviously you want to get the oceans out on Mars. You'll see some blue areas here. This is spaces reserved for the ocean tiles to go on. The oxygen is 0% oxygen, and you've got to get it to 14% oxygen, and you start off at -30 down here, and you've got to raise it to 8 degrees. With this, every time you raise one of these milestones, you do get victory points, which every generation, because this is a generational based game, you get more money for how well you're doing. So you all start off here with 20 terraforming rate. Terraforming rate acts at the end as your victory points, but as you're going along it acts as your money value for how much money you'll generate each turn. On the board there are some, if we have a closer look, we've got different symbols dotted around because it's on here. When you place a tile on these symbols, you'll get the corresponding resource. While we've zoomed in, we will look at the other areas. Down here, these are your generic actions. So this is selling cards back you don't want, increasing your energy production, increasing the temperature on Mars, placing an ocean tile. Here is placing a vegetative area, which in turn increases the oxygen on Mars. And here is place a city on Mars. You also get one money generation when you do this action as well. So it will say how much money all the actions cost, and obviously selling back cards gives you the amount of money back equal to the number of cards you sell back. There is also a solo variant of the game. I will not be going into that tonight. That can be saved for another episode of this. And here is obviously a marker showing where everybody starts. So this is the board. There's also some other symbols on some of the trackers, which means if you're the one who raises it to that certain point, you get reward. So if you get to 8 oxygen, you get to increase the temperature tracker. If you get to 0 degrees, you get to place an ocean tile. So that is the main board from the box game. Now, other areas, this is up to 5-player game. You have your own little tokens placed on to show your representation. Obviously you've got the normal 5 colours, which are yellow, green, blue, black, and, which I always play, red. So that is the board and the colours. Along the bottom of the board there are other objectives in the game. So you've got your milestones, which are like the first person to do a certain objective. You get to activate a milestone and it gets you points at the end of the game. Awards are slightly different. Awards at the bottom are obviously other objectives to go to, but even if you pay for it, doesn't mean you're going to get points. So you have to pay an increased amount of money to activate the milestone as the game goes on, and it's the person with the most of that resource at the end of the game who gets 5 points, and the second person to get 2 points. So it is all to do with, you might be having the most of that particular goal at the start, but by the time the end of the game is, you might have actually lost the can't think of the word now, lost the objective. So for anything not covered in this episode, there is always a rules book which comes with it for the basic game. Certain things are not brilliantly clear. When other rules books came out for the expansions, some aspects were made more clear. One of the ones which was in a big contention at the start was what happens if you want to increase oxygen or increase temperature once it's reached the max. Do you still get your terraforming rate? The answer is no. The 3 main milestones in the core game will increase it as long as you can do the action. So if you can place an ocean, you get a terraforming rate. If it says, an action says place an ocean, and there is no oceans left, you can still do the action. You do not place the ocean, and you do not get the corresponding terraforming rate. So I hope that is clear for you if you have played it before and there is a couple of other questions. If you do have other questions and you have played it, put a link, a comment on this video, and I will get back to you with an answer either in another video about Terraforming Mars when we play the game and go through it, or I will reply back with an answer for you to help you out. Now, it doesn't make a difference if you're the first time playing it and everybody's played it a few more times. It doesn't make a difference. It's still a fair, balanced game, and it is really well done. First player is the last person to have won a previous game of Terraforming Mars. So it does. There are aspects of it which could be you think is beneficial, but it doesn't actually necessarily mean you are. If it's your first time of playing Terraforming Mars, you will get this card. This is your can't think of the word now. Corporation. This is your corporation card, and it basically means you get 42 money to start off with at the start of the game, and 10 of these cards. These cards are what you use during the game to do certain actions. It could give you points, it could give you other abilities. with this, you do get 10 cards, but with this, for second time onwards, you'll actually get a different corporation. This is one from the basic game, if you have a look at it, which means it gives you slightly different money, and it gives you a generic ability. There are some corporations which we've found out are a lot more powerful than the others, but it is generally how you play. It doesn't make a difference if you've got a good one of the ones we've found which wins more. If you don't use it correctly, it will still lose you the game. So you've got to play to the strength of your corporation. When you have a corporation, you get dealt 10 cards at the start of the game, but you've got to pay 3 money to keep each card. So sometimes you might start with little cards, sometimes they might all be good, and you run out of money so you can't even buy all of them. You do have to choose this correctly. It's not always brilliant to get cards and then sell them, because you're obviously buying cards at 3 money a time, and then you're selling them at 1 money, so you are losing it if you aren't using it opportunity. So that's why we're saying it does take a bit, but the beginning corporations, even though they don't have a special effect, you normally get more money with them, and you get a full hand size at the start of the game, just to help you, because you don't know really what you're doing there, so it gives you an opportunity to learn more and not punish you for not playing it before. So games we've found to do with the normal game last about 6 turns, just to give you a heads up. You do get to place certain tiles, and then depending on the games you are going on, something you've got to remember is, which isn't that clear even though there are help cards to do it, cities like this cannot be placed next to each other unless a card specifically says they can do. However, greenery tiles, which are the other side of this tile, can be placed next to wherever you want. The only 2 limiting places for both these two are if it's a named city, or you cannot put it on a space reserved for an ocean, and likewise oceans can't be placed otherwise unless something states it on spaces which aren't reserved as oceans. So there is this. So these are double-sided to allow for, if you have all type of the games, you'll be able to have it as you want, because there's enough tiles. Something to make sure you're also aware of is, even if you place your greenery next to other people's cities, it can benefit their cities and give them points. So you do want to be cooperative, but you also want to be careful and think about what you want to do. Each turn you get, well, I'll go through a generation. So a generation in the game is 1 set. Other than the first generation, at the start of each generation you get 4 cards, which you can choose to buy or not buy. Each card you buy is free money. At the start of the generation also you'll get new money and new resources depending on your generation rate. Everybody starts at the start of a normal game with 1 generation rate of in all categories. So if we have a look at the board, here's your board. This you get 1 of these each. So you've got money, steel, titanium, greenery, energy, and heat. Any counter state which is on these at the end of the turn stays there, unless it's energy, which goes for heat as the next generation. So at the start of a game you'll get 1 of everything to start you off, to give you a helping hand. But we'll talk about what happens in different variants of the game later. But in each generation, so you'll get it at the start. Then, other than the first generation, obviously, which you only start with the initial money you have here. Going forward, then the person with the first player token goes first. He can do 1 or 2 actions. Sometimes it's more beneficial to do 1 action and then move on to the next player. And then if it comes around to you and you can't do an action, you have to say pass. Or sometimes you might say pass. If you pass, you cannot do anything else until the next generation. Once everybody has passed, then it is the end of the generation, and we move on. Everybody gets more resources for the next generation, some more cards if they want to buy, and then the first player does move on clockwise one player. So as I say, normally with a 5-player game, which is how the versions I normally play, it normally takes 5 to 6 turns with that amount of players in the normal game. Other variants of the game is another variant of the normal box game is called Cooperative Era. Recommended for everybody who's at least played this once. In this version there are more cards in it, so you get a deeper set of cards, so it's more variated. But the big part of this is on here, where you normally would start with one generation of everything, your generations are set to 0. So you physically have to increase your generating ability to start unlocking that resource. So it is much more important, and it does slow the game down slightly. Not dramatically, but slightly, and it gives it a lot more variated opportunities. So it is quite good. I recommend that if you've all played it at least twice, then move on to Cooperative Era. Other areas which you can do with the game, as I said, is get some of the expansions. And now the first expansion which came out is a new board. All it comes with is a new board, and I've got it here. So we had an orange side like border for first board. The expansion board is this one, so it's got blue. So the one you're looking at there is like the south pole of Mars. So you can see the south pole at the bottom, and it's got different milestones and awards on it. And then on here, this is another side of Mars. So as I said, each map gives you about a third on Mars. It means with the expanded board, or the additional board I should say, you get to see most of it. You will notice on the boards it does say certain places, so if you know your Mars, you can see all the volcanoes like here, and you can see some of the areas. So that gives you more variety. One key piece of advice is the expansion comes with this leaflet. Whatever you do, do not throw it away. You can leave this in your box because it can just fit in the normal core box because it's big enough. But on the back, it says some of the rules for that map. So it has your milestones and your awards and what they mean. Because obviously if you throw this away, you've either got to Google it or you need to try and figure out it yourself, which isn't always the easiest. Also, it tells you a bit about here, about certain things like lava flows on the original map said certain areas it could only be activated in. Obviously, them volcanoes are not on the other two maps in the expansion, so here says where you can actually use it. It is common sense, like some of the mountains, but again, it is all here clear as day to stop arguments. If you have thrown this away and didn't realise what was on the back, again, please drop me a comment here and I'm more than happy to give you a description of what's here so you can play the game at the full extent if you haven't been able to Google the actual true answers of it. The other expansion, which has come out in 2018, is the Venus expansion. So another little rulebook here. And in this, it doesn't replace the board, it adds a small board. So we've got another mile goal here, which gives you more chance to get TP, and it gives you another few spaces to build cities. All on this board are named cities, so you can only build on this board if you have the corresponding card. And again, it also adds a good chunk of cards here. And it also gives you more corporations. To help you out though, we'll take a look at 2 of the corporations to show it you on. So here, this is a Venus card. All Venus cards have a little V in the corner. And here's the corporation cards, which do come in the normal box, and they've got this little symbol. So obviously, if you're playing Corporate Era, you add them into the mix. If you aren't playing Corporate Era, make sure you don't have any of these in the deck. So you might think, with tons of different areas, how do they, it must be a lot of tokens. Well, it's not really. You get a bag of tokens which look like this. So you've got big white ones. They're your where you put on your generation and the milestones to keep track of like your oxygen, your temperature. And then you've got littler ones inside. So you've got bronze, silver and gold. These are generic markers, so you can put this on. It is a bit of a trust game because of it can be easy to accidentally knock a silver cube from here into this one, and then you've suddenly gone from having 5 money to 5 steel, which could be much more beneficial to the player. A bronze is worth 1, a silver is worth 5, and obviously gold's worth 10. So when you look at cards, we've got a selection here for you. They've all got a monetary value in the top corner. So obviously, when you want to use a card, if you can, you need to spend money to use it. Now, if you don't, certain types of cards, like a structure, like this one, which has that symbol in it, means you can actually use steel to help pay for it. Every steel you use for it reduces cost by 2. If you've got an odd number, an odd card, it's a bad example this because it says 6, but say you had one which costs 13, you can use 7 steel to pay for it, but you do not get any change. So it might be more beneficial to use 6 steel for it and then to pay 1 money. So you can split the cost between your resources. Likewise, so buildings had that symbol on it, and it shows you can pay with steel. And your space cards have a titanium symbol, which is that small circle there. So it means you can do the same, but use titanium to pay for 3 parts of the cost for the space cards. Down here, when you've got 8 vegetation, you can use 8 vegetation to do a greenery tile. Please be careful. You might think it's best hoarding greenery on your tile, but there are cards in the game which can make you destroy greenery of your opponent's tiles. So do be careful of that. Energy. Sometimes it will say spend so much energy to do something. Sometimes it might say decrease your energy production to do something. If it says you've got to spend a certain resource, you have to be able to spend it. If it says the outcome of it is raise temperature or place greenery or do something like that, and you cannot do that, you can still play the card and just not trigger that last little bit. But any cost part of the card, you always do have to pay. And then obviously the last one is heat. You can spend heat to raise temperature. So every 8 heat there is there, you get to raise temperature. Temperature is one of the ones which does get raised really, really quick. So you do have to be careful of that. You might not want to spend all your money to raise your heat production and then realise you aren't going anywhere. In one of the corporations you can spend heat as money, which is quite good. But some of the other factions or corporations, towards the end of it, you just get a lot of heat piling up. So you do want to be sort of careful and not over, make that really, really powerful, because of it could not be beneficial to you at the end of the game. So that's a bit about the cards, some of the expansions, well, all the expansions currently for it. I believe that is everything really you need to learn about the game to be able to go out and do it. As I say, it is one of my favourite games, and it sadly does not make the top 5, but it definitely makes top 10. We will be looking at it when we get a group of friends round to do one of this game and then film it, and then we'll also get some like reactions and ideas from other people once they've played the game, to show you a more general opinion instead of just me. So I hope that answers some questions people have got for Terraforming Mars. I am pleased to say, instead of just being on this couch with a cream door behind me, we will be towards the end of September, beginning of October, being in our final place, well, the home of Gaming with the Sims, in our purposely built recording area, so you'll get a much nicer backdrop behind me of some board games, of some sci-fi stuff, and it will make it look feel much more at home. I'd like to do a shout out for Scary Gaming and Jonathan English, who are loyal subscribers to the channel, so please thank you very much. And remember, the competition this month is to win Game of Exploding Kittens. You need to, as of last video, subscribe to the channel and share the video. This week I'd like to say, please can you go back to last week's episode and comment saying Exploding Kittens to be in the chance of winning this copy. And remember, if we get 1,000 or more subscribers, we will not only be giving one of these copies away, we will be giving 2. In the bottom corner you'll see a link for the July videos, so please continue watching them, and in the top there is a subscribe button. So thank you very much for watching another episode of Gaming with the Sims. I'm your channel host, Charles Sims, and remember, like, share and subscribe. Keep this